Hello, I'm back with another video, and from the title, you can see that I'm unashamedly jumping on the X-Men 97 bandwagon. Now, my next video originally wasn't going to be about X-Men 97, but after watching the series through and talking about it with different people and getting them to watch it as well, I couldn't not cover this series. Now, I didn't grow up with the original series as I was born a few months after its end, so I didn't have any nostalgic ties to the show or any indicators of what the quality would be like, and furthermore, it wasn't something I ever wanted to watch as a kid, as I much preferred the Fox films when I was growing up, bar an obvious few, and I never really heard people talking about the show that were my age at least. Now, I did try to give it a shot during the first lockdown in 2020, as I just got on Disney Plus and I was curious to see what it was saying. However, I don't think I watched more than a few episodes before I got bored and moved on to something else. And I was skeptical that would be the case with X-Men 97, but luckily it wasn't, and it's a show that I think is genuinely very special, and for hardcore X-Men fans, I hope it's something that they can get behind. And there's so many elements that I love about the show, from the characterization of Magneto and everything that he goes through, to the complex love triangles, the intricate and downright beautiful animation, and of course, the action sequences. I could probably make a 3-hour video about this show, but I don't want to waffle on too much, so I'll keep this as brief as I can. Now heads up, there are spoilers ahead. You've been warned. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The world our characters inhabit feels grounded and lived in, with a rich history of hatred towards mutants, and right from the jump of the first episode, we can sense tensions arising between humans and mutants. And while there is levity in the show, as seen in Cyclops' first fight scene, and with characters such as Morph, the feeling of unease continues to rise still. This tension bubbles up in moments such as Storm's depowering in episode 2, the attack on Genosha in episode 5, and of course the 3-part finale, which I'll get onto shortly, because my god, was I chuckling like a little kid at points during those episodes. Our characters are placed into challenging situations, and this often comes with pain and suffering. From Cyclops and Jean learning about how Jean was cloned by Mr. Sinister, and Cyclops' inner turmoil as he juggles having to reconnect with Jean, while still having feelings for her clone Madeline. Furthermore, he and Madeline's decision to send their child Nathan, aka Cable, to the future to save his life, all within the first few episodes, had me spun from the mental whiplash he must have been feeling, placing a team leader like Cyclops into these situations while having him balance the mantle of leadership after the death of Professor X, and then having to relinquish leadership to Magneto because of Charles's wishes, was a lot to throw at the character, and I think it was all handled very well and led to interesting character moments, such as his outburst in episode 5 as he's being interviewed by Patricia Tilby. Moments like these show us how someone can snap and really allows us to empathise with those fantastical characters by placing them in situations that many of us might not be able to handle. And not to be too harsh on previous iterations of Cyclops, but I never really cared for him because it was pretty clear that the creators of those previous versions of Cyclops didn't care about him themselves. And this show was the first time they ever really cared about Cyclops. Not that it's the only achievement the show has accomplished, but it's a notable one to me, as it's nice to see the leader of the X-Men treated as such, and not as a second fiddle to Wolverine. Another character who was treated masterfully was Magneto. The Master of Magnetism was the character who excited me the most out of the series, as they balanced the right amount of campiness with badassery, making for some great character moments and action sequences that were jaw-dropping and satisfying. I think one thing that everyone can agree on is that Magneto was consistently proven right about humanity, and the sequence of events that happened throughout the show, from Storm taking a shot that was meant to be for him and being depowered as a result of it, to the attack on Genosha and his inability to save a child who he promised would never be afraid again, and Bastion Sentinels, who are literally a humanoid army tasked with eliminating all mutants. Magneto has always been a sympathetic villain, and is more of an anti-hero for most of the series, warning the UN panel in episode 2 to not make him let them down and return to villainy. His decision to put the helmet back on in episode 9 has so much weight behind it, and timed with the return of Professor X and their verbal chess match for the hearts of the X-Men was satisfying and heartbreaking at the same time. Magneto is a man who has suffered and seen his people suffer his whole life, and all over which god they worship or because they were born different. X-Men 97 asks us to reflect on our prejudices and our lack of empathy for those who suffer due to reasons beyond their control. I found myself questioning if I was doing enough to help those with less than myself, and for what was meant to be a fun campy show about cartoon mutants, do that is a phenomenal achievement. Rogue was another standout character for me, and similar to Cyclops, was never fully done justice in the original Fox movies. Rogue's turn from a kind friend and fierce warrior to a grieving, rage-filled anti-hero after Gambit's death was done quite convincingly, and was cemented when she decided to drop Trask in episode 7. And Rogue's love triangle with Gambit and Magneto was something I don't think many people expected, and made sense as it illustrates the power of emotional connection over purely physical. I do think her affair with Magneto did undercut the emotional weight of her more questionable actions in later episodes as she mourns Gambit's death, but that's just me. Overall, I thought Rogue was a really fun character, and her return to the team in episode 10 as she bodies Bastion was just...
oh, beautiful.
I realise I've only spoken about a few characters on the show so far, and that's just down to who I perceived as being main players in the series and who stood out to me as the most exciting to watch throughout the show. However, one character's journey who I have sort of mixed feelings about was Storm. Storm's storyline was an interesting one because it almost felt as though they wanted to do a bit more with her character, and while the life-death story was a creative way of us seeing her fight her inner demons and overcoming her insecurities to become the strongest version of herself, that plotline did feel sort of rushed, and part of me wonders if maybe Storm regaining her powers could have been done across multiple episodes and given time to manifest in a more satisfying manner, potentially in Season 2. The way that Life Death Parts 1 and 2 kind of speedrun her regaining her powers and then seemingly falling in love with Forge was very quick for me. Saying that, I didn't hate the pacing, and I understand why it may have been done that way, as I'm not sure how keen people would be to have a mainstay of the X-Men be in the team for only 2 episodes, to then be depowered, with no promise of them ever regaining their abilities. Another missed opportunity for me, which I've seen a lot of other people mention online, was the handling of Morph. While some characters like Scott, Jean, Rogue and Magneto really got their moments to shine, Morph was sort of left off to the side, and some content creators have posed the theory that there were additional scenes cut that would have delved further into his character, with potential scenes cut being interactions with Mr. Sinister and Morph's love for Wolverine, which was heavily implied at multiple points during the series. Morph was pretty much just used to provide cameos and comic relief, and while the show was strong enough to forgive that, that's not to say that stinker of a Season 2, which uses Morph in the same way, would grant the same treatment or response. This show treated us to some of the best episodes in all of Marvel animation, and at least at the time of writing this, it's the best Marvel Disney Plus show in my humble opinion, and some of the best work produced by Marvel in the last 5 years. The pivotal episode for me, which solidified my love for the show, was episode 5 with the attack on Genosha. The first half of the episode, while filled with great character moments, lacked the raw excitement and thrills you expect to come from the X-Men, and then we're hit with the surprise Cable cameo, and all hell breaks loose, with Magneto calling our only X-Men on the scene, Rogue and Gambit, into action. Magneto using a train as a whip and screaming they shall be avenged, hinting at not just the mutants being killed on Genosha, but also the 6 million Jewish people murdered by the Nazis during World War II. Gambit's sacrifice allowed him a fitting hero's end and put the show on the path of conflict that would follow in the second half of the series. When I speak to people about this show and they're unsure if they should watch it, I simply just say, just get to episode 5 and let me know what you think. The action across the board is phenomenal, with the use of beautiful animation that blends traditional 2D animation of the original series with 3D animation, creating some incredibly dynamic sequences and memorable moments. These moments include Cyclops in episode 1, using his optic blast to slow his fall, like he's a rocket landing on Earth, which was just delicious. Other standout moments include the action scenes with the Human Sentinels in episode 8, where they fight our heroes in the X-Mansion, and we see Nightcrawler's teleportation in action, joining him and Wolverine as they take on swarms of Bastion's puppets. The Summers family being chased by the Sentinels in both the air and on land was fitting, leading to great visual and character moments, as we see a family who have never been able to have one-on-one time together, to bond as a family, even if it's while they're being chased by killer humanoid robots. And episodes 8 to 10 were great, not just on the storytelling level, but also delivered on big moments, from Magneto pulling out Wolverine's skeleton, which is ripped straight out of the comics, to Charles taking over Eric's mind to undo the damage he'd done to Earth, and the X-Men teaming up to stop Bastion. Everyone gets their moment to shine, and we see more from characters like Wolverine and Jubilee. So much happened during these final 3 episodes, and the X-Men being separated across time at the end, with setups for new villains like Apocalypse in Season 2, make me really excited to see where the series goes next. And the finale also treated us to big cameos from heroes such as Daredevil, Iron Man and Black Panther, which made me very happy, not just because they were there, but because they were used sparingly and not relied upon to improve the quality of the episode. And for me, this is one of the stronger third acts that Marvel's produced recently, and if Marvel continues producing animated shows, I hope they learn lessons from the good that they've done with this show. X-Men 97 fully deserves the respect that it's receiving online because it's clear that those who produced it truly care about the story they were telling, and it wasn't just made to satisfy greedy studio executives. These are just a few of the reasons why I love this show. Like I said, we could be here all day, but I'm sure you have better things to do with your life. than to listen to me waffle on. So my question to you is, what was your favourite moment from the show, and what do you think will happen in season 2? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, please consider subscribing. It would help a lot. Thank you as always for watching. It is much appreciated. Till the next one, see you in a bit.